It's just after 1 a.m. on October 31st, 1999. 217 people on board Egyptair Flight 990 are waiting for takeoff. The flight's command pilot is Captain Ahmed El Habashi.
Oh.
He has been with Egyptair for 36 years.
Yes.
The command first officer is 36-year-old Adel Anwar. He switched duty with another co-pilot so he could return home in time for his wedding.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Cabin crew, takeoff position.
After an everyday blessing, the co-pilot assists the takeoff. For safety, both pilots push the throttles. On a flight of 10 hours, it is standard practice at Egyptair to provide a relief crew to share the flying duties. Tonight, Captain Raouf Noor El Din and First Officer Gamal El Batouti are the relief crew. They will take over after the first 3 or 4 hours and fly the plane until shortly before Cairo.
V1, rotate, positive rate of climb, both sides. 1,000.
Egyptair 990 Heavy, contact, departure now, 125.7.
A large number of passengers are senior citizens from the United States, looking forward to touring the wonders of ancient Egypt. Gamal El Batouti used to be an Egyptian Air Force flight instructor. He is now one of the oldest first officers at Egyptair. He is so much older than the other co-pilots that out of respect they call him Captain. But some at Egyptair think that Captain El Batouti has been coasting too long on the favors of old friends. Just over 20 minutes after takeoff, El Batouti is about to leave his seat. Former National Transportation Safety Board investigator Greg Phillips became an expert on the events of this flight.
The relief first officer, who would have been expected to come to the cockpit somewhere during the later part of the flight, halfway or wherever he was comfortable, wherever the normal change would have been, came into the cockpit about 20 minutes after takeoff.
I slept, I swear. Just wait. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to sleep at all. I might come sit for 2 hours
But
and then...
I slept. I slept.
You mean you're not going to get up? You will get up. Go and take some rest and come back.
You should have told me this. You should have told me this, Captain Gamal. You should have said, Adel,
Did I even see you?
I will work first. Just leave me a message.
The younger first officer seems surprised that El Batouti wants to replace him so early in the flight.
And I'm not sleepy. So you take your time sleeping, and when you wake up, whenever you wake up, you come back, Captain, okay? Look, if you want to sit here, there's no problem. Why don't they bring your dinner to you here, and then I'll go sleep, okay?
That's good.
Okay, with your permission, Captain.
And with that, El Batouti leaves to get his meal.
Do you see how he does whatever he pleases? Everything's under control.
Okay, Chief.
Thanks a day.
First Officer Anwar concedes and is ready to hand over to El Batouti. Normally, this is the most relaxed, easy part of a long flight for pilots and passengers alike. The highly automated aircraft systems will take care of the flying for several hours.
Egyptair 990, roger.
It's very unusual for an airplane flying over the Atlantic at nighttime to encounter any kind of difficulties. We normally expect accidents to happen in approach or landing or near airports, and very seldom do we get anything out over the ocean in the middle of the night.
Excuse me, Jimmy, while I take a quick trip to the toilet.
Go ahead, please.
Egyptair's Flight 990 appears to be cruising smoothly over the Atlantic, but then the plane dips, plunging down. The nose pitches down, creating zero-G and weightlessness throughout the aircraft.
I rely on God.
Whatever the first officer is intending, he says nothing except this phrase again and again.
Adel!
Captain El Habashi fights the disorientation of zero gravity, desperately trying to return to the cockpit.
The captain somehow made his way back into the cockpit.
Warning signals indicate the dive is exceeding the maximum speed allowed for the plane, taking them to 99% of the speed of sound. This far past the plane's design limits, the stresses on the airframe are pulling it apart.
What's happening?
I rely on God. I rely on God.
Captain El Habashi pulls back hard on his control column. Then he tries to use the engines to power their way out of the dive by pushing forward on the throttles, but he gets nothing.
What? You shut off the engines?
I rely on God.
Desperate, the captain deploys the speed brakes panels standing up from the wings in an effort to slow the dive. In America, the FBI focuses on Gamal el-Batouti and the question of motive.
Had some personal issues. The investigation and from the interviews we did at the various places that he stayed, he did have, I think, a propensity to engage in behavior with some of the hotel people in terms of sexual misconduct. Appeared to be totally out of the realm of what was normal for a person of that status to do.
The dive is slowing back from the brink of the sound barrier. The dive goes on, but the nose is coming up. In just seconds, they go from 0G to double the force of gravity. 3 months after the FBI began investigating el-Batouti, an Egypt Air flight landed in London. The plane's captain requested political asylum. Captain Hamdi Taha was a colleague of Gamal el-Batouti's. Captain el-Habashi struggles to level the plane and pulls back hard on the control column. The 767's dive begins to slow, but his description of el-Batouti meeting with the airline's chief pilot was intriguing.
Hatem Rushdie went to see Batouti the night they took Flight 990. The flight back to Cairo from New York.
This will be your last flight to the United States.
He would not be flying to America anymore.
Pull with me! You shut off the engine, boy!
I think that what happened was this. If this is going to be my last flight, it will be Hatem Rushdie's last flight also.
In seconds, the engines stop and the power goes off, plunging the aircraft into darkness.
The Egypt Air Chief of Operations called all flight crew to a special meeting in Cairo. And then he told us not to talk to anyone about it. Don't talk to your family. Don't talk on the phone. Don't talk to each other, he told us, and told us the facts. But all we pilots realized that this was not an accident.
The plane is climbing again, up from about 16,000 feet to over 24,000 feet, as the aircraft structure is weakened by the strains of abnormal speeds and maneuvers. Investigators hope that this is the key to unlocking the mystery of Flight 990. When the actions in the cockpit are put together with a voice recording, a timeline emerges that indicates a series of initially bewildering decisions. The timeline reveals that after Captain el-Habashi leaves the cockpit, the relief first officer disconnects the autopilot. The plane starts to descend, rolling to the left. After switching off the autopilot, el-Batouti pushes his control column forward. Then he pulls the throttles back, reducing engine power. This causes the plane to dive. Then the aircraft falls into another terrifying dive. Stressed beyond endurance, the left engine is ripped from the plane.
All of us realized that Batouti had done this on purpose.
At 1:50 a.m., Flight 990 disappears from radar screens. For the American families involved, this was a case of 216 murders and 1 suicide.